Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of Swept Software. And today joining me is Nicole Mason of Glean Cleaning Services. So thank you so much, Nicole, for joining.
Thank you, Michael. It's a great opportunity.
So we're going to jump right in here. When we bring people in and we like to hear everyone's story about how they got into the industry, and yours is quite unique. Everyone has a different story, but we'd love for you to share how you got into into this industry.
Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. I was working in mental health, and two things were happening at the same time. I was experiencing some burnout just because I was concerned about what we were actually doing to help people versus kind of what my limitations were. So as you know, insurance and all kinds of restrictions kind of are in place for good reason, for liability reasons, but sometimes they restrict what you can do to help folks move on. So I was specifically working with children and their parents. So I saw a constant need for families to have stability. So if a child didn't know next week where they were going to live, or if there was enough food in the house, then how could I talk to them about all these counseling things if they had basic needs that were still an issue?
Yeah.
So in my very naive and dreaming brain, I said, well, we just need to create a company that people get paid well, right? A place where people are respected. There is some flexibility in scheduling. They could make a schedule that works for them. It could cater to parents. It could allow people to kind of have a place that they know for sure, even if I'm not the most educated, even if I'm not the most skilled, this is something I know I can do and I will be valued. And so I started the cleaning company while I was still in practice. So the cleaning company was always running independent of me, but I would oversee it. So my staff would be out in the evening and I would be at work, kind of just managing both.
Amazing. I don't know anyone who started a cleaning company kind of like with that purpose and that background. It's amazing. Also, you noted that you're experiencing a bit of burnout. I don't know anyone who's left an industry to come here to avoid burnout, because I'm sure you've experienced it as well. It's a really it's an industry that takes a lot from us, and it gives a lot as well. But it does take a lot to be successful in this industry. So
that's a very good way.
So that's what brought you here. Could you talk about your journey of, are you still a professional counselor? Are you full-time in the business? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so probably the first 3 years, I was still working in mental health and the company was still going. And I say to most people that I feel like you're not doing entrepreneurship right if you never wanted to quit or you didn't think of, okay, how am I going to get out of this? So 2 years in, I learned that there was one muscle that I had developed of starting something, but I needed to develop a whole nother muscle to grow it and maintain it. And so 2 years in, I thought, hey, I started it. It's working. I'm going to move on to something else. I'm going to talk with our customers and see if they'll just absorb my staff and have them to work directly for them. And the more I kind of fielded it to people that I actually trust, they were like, Nicole, why would you do that? So I realized that I had to really put in systems so that it wasn't as much of a burden. And not to say that the company was a burden, but the way I was running it was difficult. Yeah. So that was a challenge.
It's interesting that the way you were doing it was creating a challenge. It's kind of like, because we can endure something. I was actually talking to my team about this the other day, looking for efficiencies. Like, just because you can go from point A to point B, doesn't mean you've done it in the best way. Like, you can endure it and get through it, but there's some people do it, walking and skipping, and other people are clawing, I found in the early days, I was clawing for everything. Yeah. At least that's how it felt.
Yes. I mean, we've had amazing blessings where we got a contract before I even had staff and even had the business set up. So that really pushed me in kind of momentum of, okay, we got to get things together. And when people heard about the concept, they thought the concept was already a reality. And I was like, I got to go buy some cleaning supplies, you know? So it was exciting because people kind of got behind it and are still getting behind it. And there are people who kind of are still questioning. I would say my grandfather was one of the first ones who was like, you're going to leave a good job with benefits to go clean it, and you have a master's degree. And I was like, Grandpa, I'm not cleaning, but if I have to, I will. You know, I just think this is an opportunity. So it's just an interesting experience.
There's no entrepreneurial story without somebody, or usually a lot of people, questioning. And, you know, people give the advice that they would take. It's not wrong, maybe for them, but it might be wrong for you, right? And so that's interesting. So talk about the cleaning. Have you done a lot of cleaning yourself? Do you still do cleaning when people don't miss shifts? Like, how did you make that transition? Because I started being my first cleaner, which a lot of people have done. So you might have taken a much better approach.
No, my first cleaning job, I always had staff. So I remember the quadrant that I think Robert Kiyosaki talks about of being self-employed versus having a business and having those pieces of the system. So I didn't want it to be kind of like a hairstylist where if you don't show up, you don't get paid. I didn't have the luxury of being able to do that because I was still working a full-time job. So I always had staff. I've had limited staff at times, or I've had people who would be like a PRN and they would fill in for us. But I can't tell you that I don't clean. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago, we had a series of situations where all three of our backups just weren't available. And so I helped the team out just because I think that's the nature of having a cleaning business. If you're unwilling to clean, I think that's when it becomes dangerous.
Absolutely. So you've really built a purpose-driven company that's, it sounds like it's impacted your sales, like how you've engaged and found clients, but also how you've engaged and found staff and built your team.
Very true. Yeah. And
amazing.
I wouldn't take personal credit for that. I would say my faith is really a reason that has been able to come together, because it wasn't an idea. It wasn't on my radar at all. I was looking at franchises for like Subway. I was looking at other businesses that had nothing to do with cleaning. So, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. You know, people search and search and search and strategize and think, trying to figure out how to make their business more purposeful, because it's proven when you have that purpose that you can accomplish so much more. And it's amazing that you're able to find that and unlock that. Can you talk about your hiring process, like your hiring and training or retention, especially as you had people for your first contract, which is just epic. Yeah. What is it like today? And can you take us through what that looks like?
We are unique. And I say this knowing that it is odd, but we are unique in the idea that every person who applies to our company gets an interview. Because if our goal is to create job opportunities, there are people who have limitations, whether it is their previous work experience, or I've had a lot of people on the team who they haven't worked for 10 years. It's just it's interesting who is attracted to Glean. So initially my thought process was really parents, people who need supplemental income, but the more we grew, the more it was retirees or people who are preparing for retirement. And it was people who had multiple children, and now because virtual school is happening, they need flexible scheduling. So it's just morphed into something else. But I would say our hiring practice is really people come onto our website, they apply, they schedule their own interview, and every other Saturday we do phone interviews, and then we move them into a second interview. And there is an awesome lady I would love to shout out, Pam Washington, who is phenomenal at teaching how to weed out folks who are looking for quick money and aren't going to really serve the company, versus how to kind of make sure that people are able to follow basic prompts, so that once you get them on the team, you know that they can follow instructions going forward. So I use her model. I teach my staff to kind of use that model as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Pam, lovely, lovely person. She's been so successful and helped so many other people be successful in this industry. So that's interesting. I've never heard of anybody interviewing everybody who applies, but also there's something that you said is that in the process, they're actually scheduling the interview. So that's a commitment. They're actually making a commitment. So just instead of going online, click, 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 applying to everything, they have to be thoughtful in their approach, picking a time with you. That might weed out a lot of people right off that step.
I will say that they also weed themselves out because it's also an issue of time management. They pick a time that works for them that is within the window that we provide. And I would say probably 30% don't show up to the phone interview.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when I'm sorry, I'm really impressed by that. When we were hiring and building our team, we went from one city to a second to a third, and we found something that worked from the first. We kind of pulled it through, and that was we would invite people. We'd go through everything, and we'd pretty much invite everybody to an in-person, and so it would be a team. So that way, because again, we knew a high percentage would not show up, and so the first meeting was really selling the concept of what we do, why we're different, learning about them, and we usually have someone who was a full-time cleaner with us who had been with us for a number. And so they'd get a chance to talk to not just myself, but with them. And we kind of created that. And what we found was, well, it's okay if we invite 10 people and 3 show up, maybe all 3 are amazing. And we had good success with that. But it was a big lift of bringing in our cleaner and, or cleaners and different things like that. I love the concept of letting them pick and select the time.
And I wish that was like a eureka moment, but honestly, it was because I didn't have the time to schedule each person. And I was like, we have more than enough technology for people to schedule themselves. And then over time, when people started asking me about my process, I was like, yeah, if you want to apply, because we also work with agencies like social services or other places. And so if I tell them, hey, we are a place to create opportunities, but then I don't interview the folks that they send, then I felt like it was kind of not being true.
Totally. What's the retention look like with your cleaners? And do you have a program for that?
That's a great question. We do not have a program. We have people who've been on the team since I started the company, or maybe about 3 or 4 years. And then we have folks on the team who've been with us. I know the average, I think, retention before COVID was about 6 months. I have no idea what it is now. In janitorial general. But most people, I would say, stay with us closer to a year. And I've had to kind of wrestle with the idea that if you are going to be an in-between place, what does that look like for your staff? Do I coach some of my staff who are more long-term to let them know why people are cycling through? Do I have a set group of people who, and this is how the retirement population has helped, because they're not necessarily looking for 35, 40 hours a week. They're really looking for supplemental income. And so it's been a faith walk, to be honest with you, because one of the other things that I've run into is that you hire folks who haven't worked for a period of time, and they may be receiving benefits or supplemental services. And the more they make, the more their services are diminished. They call it the cliff. So we have to have that conversation when they're starting. Hey, do you know what your number is? Do you know kind of where it is you're going to start? Rent is going to start going up. Childcare supplement may be diminished. And so unfortunately, I think I've had at least 3 or 4 people, maybe 2 or 3 people who just had to stop, and they literally told me, I'm making too much money. So that has been interesting to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that the kind of challenges that you kind of find yourself, you're weaving through and building a business, things that it's just a new perspective that you didn't really account for, and that you have to, kind of figure out how to navigate. Interesting. So we'd love to hear some of the challenges that you were facing before you decided to start using Swept. You've been with us for about a year, I believe, and kind of what were you looking for, and why did you choose Swept, and kind of what it's been like? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I think, like, grand scheme, one of the reasons that we're able to pay our starting wage to be much higher than most of our competitors is because we don't have that administrative cushion of secretary. We don't have all those pieces that we have to pay for. And the reason we don't have all those pieces is because we use technology. And so when I first started, I used another app, and unfortunately the consistency wasn't there. I felt like I was a part of their team because we would have all kinds of meetings where, hey, let's test this or test that. And they would go out and buy our cell phones and try to replicate the issue. So they just weren't in a place to sustain us. And so I heard about SWEP and I thought, man, I wish I could get this system, but I'm not sure that we can foot the bill for this. And the best thing that happened to us was COVID. One, because it increased our sales, but two, because it gave us grant opportunities. And so one of the first things I asked for the grant writer, I asked, hey, can we buy this 1 year subscription to this thing? Because I really think this technology, and I kind of, tried to sell it of it will help us with this and it help us with that. And the staff will love it. It'll be great. And it has just been a huge blessing to have SWEP. And I'll give you an example why. We did a TV show, film cleaning, which we had never done before. And it was from 9 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. at night. So there are 4 different cleaners, and they don't always overlap more than a few minutes. So if the first person needed to tell the last person something, old school, we would have had to text and call, and then nobody else would have known the information. But we use that SWEP messaging feature like you wouldn't believe. And the staff started saying, oh yeah, I just left it in the SWEP app. Oh, I just left it in the message app. And so they were excited they could see what each other were doing. They could put in pictures, they could document things. So it has been a huge resource for us.
That's amazing to hear. When we built it for ourselves internally. And, like I said earlier, as you move forward in business, you start to learn things. When we put the app out and watching how our customers use it, and then watching how their teams use it. I remember the first time we had someone reach out and say, my day crews are talking to my night crew and they're solving problems before I even knew about them. Yeah. And I was like, oh, it just feels so good to see, because the frontline teams, they know what they're doing. They oftentimes don't actually need us. We limit them. And when they can actually have an opportunity to solve it, just makes life so much better. And I'd love to hear, especially that kind of use case of 4 cleaners going in over that long period of time. That's amazing. The other side of it too is like in this industry, like, so you used a grant to start out. I find that when people look at SWEP or software in general, they think, I don't have a budget. I use pen and paper. I've never thought of this. It's a brand new expense. And then as soon as they get in, they're like, oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, I couldn't live without it. And it's like that as a business owner, that's my challenge, is like how to show people the way that if you just try it, and you'll see that you won't be able to believe that you were running your business without it before. Yeah. What would you say to those people who are trying to figure out if they can make the leap over?
I think once you get a taste of it, even if you get a demo experience of it, it really will change your perspective. And what I find is that people who are new to technology have probably the most concern and worry about making that switch over. But our generation, that we do everything by app. We do our banking by app, we do our grocery shopping by app. So it's not foreign to my generation. But I will say that even the other day, 2 days ago, I met with a customer and she said, well, I think we're going to create a clipboard and we're going to write down what supplies are needed. I said, and I pulled up the app. I said, we already have all of your supplies documented in our app. Our staff go onto the app. They tell us what's needed. I can send you a PDF. She was like, you can do that? I was like, I can send it to you today. Like, I sent it to her the next day. But the idea, it was almost shocking to me, the idea that she wanted a clipboard. I was like, ma'am, we don't do clipboards. If you need this information, I will give it to you. I promise you. It's not proprietary. It is your supplies. We will send it to you. So things like that, I think, help the customer. think in a different way. And I'm in a janitorial group called Clean Biz Network. And I just talk about how, although our industry is, it's been over time, it has been a classic industry, but there's some tools that people before us use that we need to keep. And then there's some tools that people before us use that we can level up. And I would say, I would say that SWEP is definitely a way to level up on all fronts. Timesheets alone is significant. The GPS check-in is a reassurance to any owner or manager that things are getting done when you ask them to get done. Now, granted, they could be standing at the front door, smoking a cigarette for 2 hours, but if you have staff like that, you probably can already tell what's going on. So I really appreciate the app.
That's awesome. So what is next for you in Glean Cleaning?
That's a great question. Great question. So to be honest with you, I'm trying to navigate what scaling looks like for us because we have grown so much. We get requests so often for cleaning that keeping up with hiring to fulfill those cleanings, keeping up with managing to fulfill those cleanings has been one of the challenges that we've had, which I understand, of all the challenges, that's a great challenge to have. But it also means that we partner with subcontractors, people that have a sense of quality of their work. And so what I'm working on is developing a network of cleaners that we can, whether they're carpet cleaners or power washers or residential, if they do things that we don't necessarily do, we're working on just formalizing what that could look like, because I definitely think we're in a place of the economy right now where there's more than enough opportunity and we can do better if we do it together. So my goal is to try to figure out how to formalize that.
Amazing. And anybody who's listening, how would they find you?
They could just go onto gleanllc.com, and we actually have a button called the Glean Network. We just put it out a couple weeks ago. And I am just excited about the types of companies that we're partnering with, because in my state, there are several $1 million jobs that are happening because federal dollars are being sent into some construction projects. So I think there are opportunities for us to do more business together, whether that's women-owned, whether that's locally owned, whatever that looks like. I'm just looking for people who are going to do what they say they're going to do. So
that's amazing. One of the things I've seen with my customers is someone will go in on a bid, and that might be in their city, but the business will say, but we have another office here. And so they'll reach out to us at SWEP and say, hey, do you have any SWEP clients in this city? Because we want to bid on them. So again, that's just another thing, the power of that network. I love that you have a button to build your network. That's a really great idea.
That's exciting. The film cleaning that we had, they called us back and they said, you did such a great job. Do you have a location in Atlanta? And I'm in Virginia.
Right.
So I called a cleaning company that she had been mentoring me in Atlanta, and she was able to take the business because we had already had a 2-year relationship where we were working on business things like administrative systems things, but I knew she had a strong team to do it. So I just think there are great opportunities out there.
That's amazing. I sold my cleaning company a few years ago, but I found even at that point, how much has changed, because I remember learning about doing RFPs and bidding, and I was walking through, and my local competitors knew I was young, knew I was naive, didn't know what I was doing in the early days. And they would say, oh yeah, this is 6 hours to do this or this, and I'm like, okay, wow. And they were not friendly or welcoming. And now I hear so much. Again, I'm in a different position where I have the software going out to all of these cleaning companies, but they're working together, even in the same city, because you might win a contract that's too far away for you, and you can end up sharing. And so I think that's where there's a lot of strength in the industry today, where I don't think that was happening before.
Really, that's interesting. Yeah. And I think with the challenges most of us are having with COVID and hiring, I really think that that's going to be the power move or the power play to partner with other businesses and not necessarily absorb one or two new employees. But
Yeah.
I'm still trying to reconcile what that looks like with our vision and our mission of creating job opportunities. How can we do that with a network of companies?
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt in my mind, based on your journey so far, you are going to figure that out. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming in, sharing your experience and your journey with everybody. Super, super like impactful. I feel like there's so many notes I've kind of been typing on my computer here, and I'm sure everyone's going to be listening and putting some of the stuff that you've done into practice. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for developing this, because I know it sounded like you started it for your company, but we have greatly benefited from it, and I'm sure countless companies have as well. So thank you for the sacrifice you made to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye.